Same tree, two different endings by the end of summer. Most gardening advice says organza bags solve the problem. So one Saturday afternoon, I bagged every peach I had and pulled every drawstring tight. By August, half of those bags were gone. Not torn open, gone. The drawstrings were still knotted shut, hanging empty like nothing had ever been there. I figured I had done something wrong. I had not. Nobody ever told me that a bag built to stop birds was never built to stop a squirrel's jaw. I spent a whole Saturday afternoon on that tree, ladder against the trunk, one bag after another slipped over a peach, drawstrings cinched and double knotted so it wouldn't work loose in the wind. By the time I climbed down, the whole tree looked like it was hung with little paper lanterns. I stood there with a glass of iced tea feeling like I had finally cracked the one piece of advice every gardening video and blog post kept repeating. Bag your fruit, and the problem is solved. Problem solved, I thought. 6 weeks later, I walked out to check on things, and half those lanterns weren't lanterns anymore. They were just string. Drawstrings still cinched, knot still holding, hanging empty on the branch like nothing had ever been inside. No shredded fabric on the ground underneath, no bag ripped open at the seam. Just an empty little pouch swinging where a peach used to be. What bothered me was the clean knot still hanging there. If something had torn the bag apart, I'd have understood it. A hole means claws or teeth fought their way in, but these bags weren't damaged at all. They were simply missing their cargo, string and all, carried off somewhere else entirely. I walked the row twice that afternoon, checking every bag that was left, half expecting one of them to explain the rest. Nothing, just more empty little pouches, tied shut, holding air. I stood under that tree longer than I needed to, running the numbers on what those bags had cost me over the years, and none of it added up to what I was looking at. Here's the piece nobody mentions when they hand you that advice. Organza bags get sold as the universal fix. One product for every problem in the orchard. Birds pecking your cherries? Bag it. Beetles chewing your grapes? Bag it. Squirrels hauling off your peaches? Same bag, same advice, same drawstring. Nobody stops to ask whether the thing after your fruit has a beak or a jaw. I figured I'd done something wrong. Turns out the mistake was never mine. Then I started reading what other fruit growers had run into. Different yards, same empty drawstrings. Bag after bag, same ending, string still tied, the fruit and the bag both hauled off somewhere else. That detail is what stopped me the first time I saw it in someone else's post. Not a torn bag, not a shredded corner. The exact same picture I'd walked out to on my own tree, the drawstring hanging there empty like nothing had ever been inside. Different backyard, different state, same little pouch of nothing. I'm not going to tell you there's a study sitting in some database on this exact behavior. There isn't, or at least I never found one. But read enough of these threads, 3 or 4 different orchard forums, growers in totally different states who have never talked to each other, and the same detail keeps showing up. The squirrel bites clean through the stem, hauls the whole bag off, drawstring and all. Deals with the peach somewhere else, often along a fence or under cover. That's not one unlucky gardener. The same detail kept showing up in yard after yard. This is why the bag works so well against birds and falls apart against squirrels. A bird's whole plan is its beak. Woven organza is tight enough that a beak just glances off it, the same as knocking on a closed door. The bird gives up and moves to the next tree. A squirrel doesn't have that problem because a squirrel isn't trying to peck through anything. It's gnawing. And gnawing isn't optional for a squirrel. Its front teeth never stop growing, not for its whole life. That means it has to wear them down constantly, or eventually those teeth keep it from closing its mouth at all. A squirrel gnaws the way you'd file your nails if they grew an inch a month. It has to, every single day, on whatever happens to be in front of it. A stretch of organza fabric in front of a mouth built to gnaw isn't a barrier, it's a chew toy. And here's what changed how I thought about the whole setup. It was never about how tight you pulled the knot. Teeth built to gnaw all day do not stop for a few threads of fabric. The knot was never the weak point. The fabric was. If you've been buying organza bags by the hundred every single spring, that receipt is not the problem. The bag was never built for a jaw. Once that pattern was clear, I stopped looking for a better knot and started looking for a different barrier. The failure was mechanical, so the fix had to be mechanical too. You just need a barrier that respects that number. Half-inch hardware cloth, not 3/4. That extra 1/4 inch might not look like much, but it is enough room for teeth and paws to find a hold. Use half-inch hardware cloth. It is the conservative size for this small cage, and it leaves less room for teeth, paws, and loose edges. Building it is simpler than it sounds. Cut a length of galvanized hardware cloth. Build a closed cage around the trunk or branch rather than an open cylinder, and close the top and both ends so nothing can climb or drop in from above. Keep the wire away from the fruit. No peach should touch the mesh, and the squirrel should not be able to press the fruit against it. For a whole young tree, stand 4 stakes around the trunk and staple the mesh to those instead, giving the branches room to breathe inside. This is the part most people skip and pay for later. Press that bottom edge down into the soil, not just a token press with your boot. Give a squirrel nothing loose to work with. If your yard also has mice or voles working the same row, drop down to 1/4 inch mesh instead. Same wire, tighter grid, same principle. I built my first one of these around the smallest peach tree in the yard, the one closest to the fence line where the squirrels seem to stage their raids. Same ladder from that Saturday afternoon, same roll of wire this time instead of a box of little bags. That was the first tree where I still had peaches left to pick in late summer. Not one empty drawstring, not one bare stem. I'll be straight with you on the limits. This keeps out squirrels and mice just fine. It won't stop a determined raccoon if that bottom edge isn't buried and pinned down tight, so check it after storms. And this build is size for a young tree or a single branch, not a mature orchard tree with a 6-foot canopy. That's a different job for a different video. That handles the tree. But what about the one low branch that isn't worth building a whole cage for? If this level of detail on keeping squirrels out, not just birds, is what you've been looking for, subscribe and hit the bell. Every video, same level of specific. You don't need the whole cage for that one. If you've only got a couple of low branches, or a single fig tree still living in a pot on the patio, cut a foot-long strip of that same half-inch hardware cloth. Form a loose, closed cage around the fruiting section and fasten the wire to itself, not to the branch. Twist the cut end shut with a pair of pliers. Takes about 30 seconds a branch, and you're using scraps left over from the real cage anyway. An old orchard keeper I know showed me this exact trick, sitting on an overturned bucket in his side yard one afternoon while we talked shop. Simple as that. He'd been doing it since long before organza bags showed up on garden center shelves by the 100-count bag. Back then, if you wanted to keep your fruit, you made your own barrier out of whatever wire was lying around the shed. No product to buy, no drawstring to pull tight and hope. Just a strip of mesh, wrapped once, twisted shut. He said something else that stuck with me longer than the trick itself. He said the reason the sleeve works is the same reason the full cage works. It respects the same half-inch number every time, whether you're wrapping a whole trunk or one skinny branch off a potted fig. And that's really the whole lesson here, once you step back from the peaches. One product cannot solve every pest problem. A beak and a jaw do not attack fruit the same way. A bird and a squirrel are not the same pest with a different face. The fix that works is the one built for the thing you're actually fighting, not the one sold as if every yard and every pest were identical. I'll say the honest part plainly. The sleeve trick is for a few stray branches, not for a tree that's already under full assault. If squirrels are hitting the whole canopy, you build the cage, not the sleeve. This is for the leftovers, the odd branch that doesn't justify 4 stakes and a roll of wire. The bag was never wrong for what it was built to stop. It just was never built for a jaw. Half-inch wire and a pair of pliers is the whole fix, so here's what to do about it. This weekend, before the fruit ripens any further, cut 1 piece of half-inch hardware cloth long enough to wrap around your most loaded branch. Twist the end shut with pliers and slide it into place. Do the worst branch first. Advice that claims to stop every pest usually was not built around any one of them.